Hello and welcome back to Undhira Matrikulasi 2020 video. On this third video, we're going to discuss the topic of been there, done that, expressing past experiences. A little bit different than the past two sessions in which we had one main guest in our video. Today we are going to discuss with four different people. Let me introduce who's here before we begin. We have Ibu Christine Suyasa. She is the head of the international office in Undhira. She's also dosen in D4 Manajemen Perhotelan. All the way from Adelaide, South Australia, we have Mr. Paul Clayton. Hi, Paul. Say hi to everyone. From Halmahera, North Maluku, we have Mr. Nelson Salamor. He is also one of our graduates. He just came back from Germany, actually. I think we'll talk to him about that. And we have Mr. Neil Wardana again with us. He's lecturer in Sastra Inggris. He is also the admin in D4 Manajemen Perhotelan. So let's begin our discussion. As I mentioned, the topic will be about expressing past experiences. We are going to have four people as the speakers to join this topic. Myself, Ibu Christine, Mr. Paul, and Nelson. And the experiences that we all have in common here is that all of us have been to Europe at different times for different reasons and visiting different places. But this is going to be the base of our discussion. Each of us will share our experiences traveling in Europe. Okay, but firstly, let's begin with some introduction. I will invite firstly Ibu Christine to introduce yourself. Where are you right now? And how many times have you been to Europe? Let's just begin with that.
Hello everyone, how are you? I hope everybody are doing good today. So as we are doing our Zoom meeting and learning through our past experiences, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Christine Suyasa. I am working at the Universitas Dhyana Pura. I am the head of the International Office and Partnership. And I've been working at Undhira since 2007. I teach also D4 Perhotelan, and I am also teaching a front office and housekeeping classes as well as the other tourism classes. I've been to Germany. The first time I went to Germany, it was in 2015. So the first time I went to Germany, it was for a program. It's called Kirchentag, which is a Christian program, but in the middle of my program, I had the time to visit Heilbronn University. I visited Freiburg, where they have a very old, like a stylish church, the Black Forest, and there were many castles around the Black Forest as well. And then in 2018, I visited Germany for the second time, and then I continued my journey to the Netherlands.
So you have been to Europe twice or
Yes.
2 times in total, once in 2015 and also once in 2018.
Yes.
And the main purpose of your visit had been work related. Is that correct? But
yes.
But during the work time, you also had some time to do some traveling. On your second trip, you visited Nelson, was that correct?
Yes, it was 2018. I visited Nelson because Nelson was a pioneer for the volunteer program. So I had to visit him to know whether he was doing well or how was his volunteering place.
Well, that's I guess that's good for introduction. We will now go on to asking Nelson actually before we go on to Mr. Paul. And could you please introduce yourself and tell us where you are right now, and maybe tell a little bit about your Europe experience.
My name is Nelson Salamor. I am an alumni of Dhyana Pura University. I study tourism business management from 2014 until 2019. And I've been to Europe just once because I did some volunteer work in Constance in Germany for 1 year from September 2018 until at the end of August 2019. Yeah, and right now I am in my hometown in Tobelo in Halmahera in North Maluku. It's part of Indonesia. Yeah.
Part of Indonesia. You were there for quite a long time, and you were working in this area called Lake Constancia, with the
Yeah,
city.
that's right.
It's called, how do you say it, right now, or how do you
Right
say it?
now.
Right now?
Right now. Right
That's
now.
in
Yeah.
Germany, in the
Yeah,
southern part of Germany, and near
that's
the
right.
Switzerland border. So, have you, aside from being in Germany, have you been to Switzerland as well?
Yeah, many times. It's like 3 times or 4 times.
So, is it true that people say that Switzerland is expensive?
Yeah, I can say that that's true because even the Germans, they say that Switzerland is so expensive. And what about us, Indonesia?
Uh, Paul, would you care to comment? You've been to both countries. Let's just focus on these two countries for now. Switzerland was more expensive than Germany. That was Nelson's experience. What was
I would,
yours?
I would say that is true. Um, I've spent about 6 or 7 days in Switzerland. We have friends there, probably about 10 days in Switzerland across 3 short trips. And so being home based, we didn't have big hotel expenses, but when we did go out to eat or do things, I thought, oh, this is a lot more expensive than other places, just as well we're not spending too much time here.
So, in addition to those two countries, what other countries have you visited in Europe?
I've been visited many countries in Europe. For example, Netherlands, Slovakia, Hungary, Belgium, Italy, and Austria. I think it's around 9 countries that I ever visited.
I forgot when I went to visit Nelson also, we were having lunch in your place, right? In right now, and then dinner. I had dinner. It was in Switzerland, so I forgot I visited Switzerland. So it was really close by. So lunch I was in Germany, and then dinner I was in Switzerland. How amazing was that?
Speaking of beautiful Europe, the one who has had the most extensive experience traveling all throughout Europe is Paul. So, Paul, would you please introduce yourself, where you are right now, and maybe start with how many times have you visited Europe, and highlight some of the countries that you have been?
Good, thank you, Chris. I'm Paul Clayton. I'm a retired former scientist and IT manager and come lately English teacher. I've been to Undhira 7 times, 6 to teach at roughly 3 months a visit, so 18 months living on campus in Bali, and once in 2017 I went just for a short visit to go to a very special graduation for me. So 7 trips to Bali. I've been to Europe 6 times, and I visited 14 countries. That's a little bit cheeky because one of those countries I was counting as Vatican City, which technically is a country, but it's just a part inside Rome. There's mainly Western European cities, though I have been to Turkey, which is part in Europe and part mainly in Asia. So that's 14 countries: Italy, Germany, France, UK, Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slavic Republic, Croatia, Turkey, and of course I said Vatican City. And I have been to the Netherlands, but only to Amsterdam for 3 days. But most of my, well, the country I've spent most time in Europe is Italy. Of the 6 visits to Europe, 5 of them have included stays in Italy. And I went back through my old diaries, and we've accumulated 90 days roughly in Italy. Next most was 30 in each of France and Germany, and falling away after that.
So to highlight, Paul has been to Europe 6 times, and you have visited a total of 14 countries, including the Vatican City, and it's a small country. And the longest time that you've spent total over the years has been in Italy. And you focus on Italy so much that you actually have been learning the language. Isn't that correct?
I went to Italian classes at a high school in 2007. I absolutely adored doing the Italian language. I think it's probably the most beautiful language that you can hear. And I have friends who have singers who say that it's one of the best languages to sing in, and didn't get to Italy until late 2009, by which time I was starting to forget a bit. But spending time there, the ear came back, and I was able to have quite simple conversations in many places, which was particularly good because we stayed for a week in a small village and we didn't speak English to anybody in that village. So I was able to go to the shops and do simple things and make myself moderately understood.
And Nelson has been to Italy as well. Isn't that right, Nelson?
That's right. I've been in Italy just one time.
Which city did you visit?
Milan.
And Paul, how many cities have you visited in Italy?
We have stayed in 14 cities, I think it was. And some of those we would stay for several days, even a couple of weeks, and use it as a base.
And I noticed that you used the subject we. So in this case, you have been traveling with your wife?
Traveling with my wife. Almost all of our travel has been self-planned, self-organized, independent travel. I prefer it that way. And if you travel in summer in Europe, you really do need to make good plans because some places get incredibly busy. And also you need to know which days the museums, the galleries, and even some of the big churches and cathedrals are closed, because if that's the only day you're there in that town, bad luck, you miss out.
Yeah, that's true, because when I was in Germany, it turns out that a lot of the places were closed on Mondays. Paul also mentioned about France and having visited France, and I visited there as well. It's actually one of the highlights. I was in Germany for 2 weeks for a work-related trip. It was a conference. I was in Stuttgart for the most part. That was where I was based. Then I was able to visit some cities in and around the area. Like I went to Heilbronn for Heilbronn University to visit with our colleagues there. I went and visited another colleague in Esslingen. After visiting Germany, I went and spent a few extra days in France. So I went to visit Paris, and I went to visit my friend in Bordeaux, in the area in the southern France. To continue our discussion, let's talk about each of the countries. Let's begin with Germany. I think Nelson probably had the most extensive experience traveling in Germany because you've been there for the longest. So what were some of your favorite sites in Germany, Nelson?
I think I would say that the city that I lived constant is I really like, because I think that I spent a lot of time there. It's for 1 year. So I really like the city. It's just a small town in Baden-Württemberg. I like to live in the small town.
What about Christine? What was your highlight?
My highlight when I was visited Germany, I like the scenery, and especially when you enter the Switzerland area. It was really nice, like the same like what you see in the Crash Landing on You. You know, it's magnificent. And then yeah, I went when I visited Germany. I visited many places, castles. Haven't been to castle before, so it was just tremendous nice architecture. Everything was just unbelievable inside.
What about Paul? What do you remember about Germany? Sorry.
I have very fond memories of Germany. I feel very comfortable in Germany. I think I have a German mind, an Italian heart, and a French imagination. I studied German for 5 years at high school. It was over 50 years before I got the chance to use German in Germany. And surprise, surprise, a good deal of it came back to me, simple things. But I prefer more of my time around the west and the southern side of Germany. And my favorite city is probably Cologne. It's a comfortable sized city on the River Rhine, full of history, a really good base for going into to Belgium, if you wish, and into the River Moselle with all the wine and the history, and as Christine said, the castles, the architecture, good food, good art, musical tradition, and very conveniently located.
Well, for me, for myself, when I visited Germany, it was for a meeting. But within this meeting, we had a lot of exposure to different places. They actually took us to this euthanasia center. So during World War II, this was one of the places where many people were killed, the Jewish people and people who were deemed unfit for the Nazi regime at the time. So we also visited Ulm, one of the big cathedrals there. And since we visited with the church leader, so we went all the way up to the steeple and up to the roof of the big church and everything. It was really, really nice. We went to a monastery, an old monastery that is used now for a seminary. And in Blaubauren, I think that's one of my favorite places. A really nice spring, water spring, and it's blue. It's just really, really beautiful. To continue our discussion, we are still on the topic of Germany. I would like to ask Mr. Paul and Nelson to discuss a little bit about Christmas in Germany, because Christine and myself did not get to experience that.
Christmas in Germany is an absolutely fabulous time. And fabulous is not a word that I use lightly. I've had 2 Christmases in Germany, and I'd be more than happy to have another one. The lights, the music, the food, the festivals, the decorations, and for me, from down under where Christmas is usually a very hot time, the snow, the ice, quite happy to put up with snow and ice and very cold days to get to eat all that rich winter food cooked on open fires, big barbecues and so on. It's just a wonderful time, so colourful and so exciting. Plenty of things to buy for presents, and we did buy a few little things to bring back, but there's just nothing like it here.
Before we go on to Nelson, we would just like to comment on 2 things. The first, Paul mentioned down under, and many of our students may or may not know that term. Would you care to elaborate on the term down under?
It's a term Australians often use for our country. They often lovingly call our country Oz, O-Z, the land of Oz. And if you get a globe and look at Australia's position on the globe, we're on the underside of the globe, hence the land down under.
What about Nelson? What has been your experience?
Thank you. For me, it was an amazing experience that I ever had. Many Christmas tree on the street. They decorated it very beautiful when the people see it on the street. And then I like the culture in Germany. It's like every people, they will give the present or a gift to another people. For example, in my workplace, my boss and also my colleague, they gave me a lot of things, present or something like that. And also I really like the Christmas market. And every city and in every city and also in every town they have their own Christmas market, and I really like to visit that when in Christmas.
Yeah, that sounds all wonderful. The Christmas market and the Christmas trees, the many different Christmas trees. And I think historically Christmas trees also came from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. Another beautiful place is France, and Paul and myself and Nelson have been to France. Let's talk about what people say the most beautiful city in the world, which is Paris. Did either of you go up the Eiffel Tower? Because I visited the Eiffel Tower, the area, but I did not go up. I didn't have enough time to wait online because there were so many people who wanted to go up the Eiffel Tower. So I just kind of took the photo just from a bit of far away. What about you guys? What about Nelson?
We just walked around because, as you mentioned before, Mr. Chris, there were a lot of people there, and they were still waiting for maybe bought the ticket. So we decided to just walk around.
What about Paul? Did you take the time with the queue or the line to go up the Eiffel Tower?
Oh, the Eiffel Tower, that's such a cliche. I love it. I love it. We had, in one of our visits, we had a hotel room that had a view, a very distant view of the Eiffel Tower. So I just used to watch the lights flashing and sweeping around. We went to it on 2 occasions, walked around. My wife went to the top. I didn't for 2 reasons. 1, I'm not great at heights. 2, we did go to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. We went up to another high place, Montmartre, and another high building. So we had very good views over Paris. So I walked around, looked up, she went to the top, looked down, waved to me.
That's interesting. And yeah, in the city, the most romantic city, the beautiful city of Paris, there are so many things to see, so many museums. Which one was your favorite? Was it the Louvre or anything else?
I agree with you about Paris. Paris, I would put as my most romantic and most beautiful city. The Louvre, well, that's quite a gallery, but there's several other really interesting ones. And also the Musée d'Orsay for art of the 19th, very early 20th century.
The thing about visiting cities like Paris, old cities, is that there's so many churches and cathedrals. When I went there, the Notre Dame had just burned down, so I didn't get to visit the Notre Dame. But my favorite church and also spot in Paris that I was able to go to during sunset nonetheless was the Sacré-Cœur on Montmartre. Well, I've never been to the Netherlands, but I think Christine and Paul has. What was your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Chris. Amsterdam, it was a great city as well, pack of people. I didn't see many people riding bicycle in Germany, but in Amsterdam, it was bicycle everywhere. I mean, they had a bicycle lane, and then I almost got hit by a bicycle rider many times because, yeah, I mean, they were just everywhere. And then it was very windy.
Is it, hold on, is it windier than Chicago? If you remember, we went
Oh
to
yes,
Chicago
yes,
together.
it was windier
really?
than Chicago. It was, I mean, yeah, when you are walking outside, it was really cold back in November, and it was windy. And the food was great, but I mean, it was just many people on the street, everywhere. Well, I guess it's Amsterdam, so what can you expect? It's very well-known city, and then yeah, it was really nice. Again, the architect, all of the stained glasses, and all of the painting was very famous. In Amsterdam, lucky enough, I was having a meeting, a lunch and dinner as well with our alumni of Dhyana Pura. So there are many students, alumni, live in Amsterdam or in Netherlands right now.
And what about Paul?
Canals, obviously. Went for a canal boat ride, which was really interesting and quite informative way to see the central part of the city. Impressions, apart from canals, cheese, bicycles, of course, bicycles everywhere. And there are places in Germany and other cities where bicycles are quite common, but not like they are in the Netherlands. or Belgium for that matter. But it's an interesting city to visit. Quite a different look to it, to nearby German cities in the way the architecture was arranged. The church towers are quite different, and so on. And the offerings of food are very different.
That's really nice. Traveling across Europe, getting to see different sites and trying different foods and different experiences, really nice. But one of the most interesting things that we don't get to experience here in Indonesia a lot is taking the public transportation, particularly by train. So I guess to close this discussion, let's just talk briefly about how traveling across Europe.
The rail network is extensive, very good, rapid, comfortable, and moderately priced compared to many other places and other forms of transport. And the big advantage, possibly the biggest advantage, is that most of the main railway stations are right in the center of the city. The train is both cheaper, often cheaper, but almost always more convenient and definitely more comfortable than budget airlines.
What about Christine?
I live in Bali, so I don't experience to take train many times. So easy to see where they are a system. You can download it through apps, and then it's easier for you to check whether you are late in catching up the train, and then what is the next stop. And so that's how I experience train rides in Germany. And it's easy, fast, and convenience, and cheap.
In between cities in Germany, there are regular trains, high-speed trains. My highlight was definitely the high-speed train, taking the high-speed train from Stuttgart to Paris and then Paris to Bordeaux. Of course, when coming from Germany to France, it wasn't as fast as inside France itself, because in Germany they did not have a dedicated rail for the high speed, but in France they do. You go all the way up to like 320 kilometers an hour on the TGV in France, or TGV. Can you share a bit about your train experience? You've taken many train rides across Europe. Which one was your favorite?
We've had some very interesting ones. Certainly an unusual day that was based predominantly on train ride. We were staying with friends in a small village in Switzerland, and we took the local train to Biel, then changed, another train to Bern and changed, caught another local train to Interlaken, and then we caught the mountain train with 2 changes up and 2 changes down to the top of the Jungfrau to look out across the glaciers and magnificent scenery. Then 3 trains down, and then a train to Lucerne. So it was our day of 10 trains. We've had 2 night trips, Venice to Vienna, Vienna to Berlin. Particularly enjoyable trip was traveling across the top of Italy on the high-speed train, which, as you mentioned, goes over 300 kilometers an hour, looking towards the Alps to the left-hand side, to the north of the track, and across fields. And for those of you students in Bali, believe it or not, fields of rice in northern Italy. Beautiful scenery, very comfortable. We've had trips through Italy where you don't see much at all, because very fast trains running close to villages can be quite noisy. So often the track is at the bottom of a concrete pathway to retain the noise. They don't follow the windy mountain passes and so on. They just drill through the mountains. So going from Rome to Florence to Venice, you're underground half of the time. It's a great way to travel. On many of the routes, especially say the TGV, the trains are double-decker, up and down, upstairs and down. And they have dining cars and refreshment wagons and stewards who bring trolleys around through the carriages. Very civilized, very comfortable, very relaxing way to go.
Traveling is a really nice experience. It's a worthwhile experience. And I'm sure that many of our students who are joining this program would also like to do a lot of travel in their time. As we near the end of our discussion, I'd like for the four of us to give a little bit of input or advice to our students in Undhira who'd like to travel, hoping, of course, that the COVID-19 pandemic will be over soon.
Well, I'd like to say, don't lose hope. Consider options, look for possibilities, save up so that you can respond quickly if an opportunity does arise. I was in my 60s. I'm in my 70s now. I was in my 60s and retired before I got to Europe for the first time. So all of you have seen more than I have, more than I had at your age. I'm making up for it now and still hoping to do more. But you still have time. So look for unexpected ways, like Nelson or like Jessica the other day, doing voluntary service work. Look for opportunities where somebody can pay your fares. If you're doing further study, look for conferences and opportunities for exchanges, things that you might be able to achieve a placement in another country that allows you to travel in your spare time. So if somebody else pays for it, that travel is even sweeter. There are always interesting ways to go, interesting places to see. So dream about it and have plans so that, as I said, if something comes up at short notice, you've got an idea of where you would like to go and what you would like to see.
Great advice. Christine, what about you? What would you like to share?
Yes, first of all, I would like to encourage students to go out from your box. So go out from your comfort zone, challenge yourself. Don't be afraid of traveling, even though you are alone. I experienced many times traveling by myself outside of Indonesia, even though I didn't speak their language, but there are many people who can speak English. They can help you. So they will, you will meet a lot of people with any kind of backgrounds, and you may be friends with them for forever in your life. And then yeah, I think if you study at Undhira, there are many opportunities for you to travel outside of Indonesia. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to meet you all. And if you need any advice or any information about traveling abroad, come to the international office. Thank you.
Thank you. Nelson.
Thank you. I just like to say that there's nothing happen unless there's first a dream. So just dream something that you want, set your goals, do your best, and don't be afraid for everything. And the most important thing I think is walk by faith and take a risk. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very nice advice as well. From me, I would like to share with everybody that in addition to having a dream and seizing the opportunity as they come, you also have to be prepared. I've heard this saying that says, luck comes to those who are prepared. I was able to travel to North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia. The only thing I'm missing is Australia, and hopefully that can change. Yes, having a dream and being ready with language, particularly English, and also pick up on the other languages. You never know. And you'd be surprised to be able to say please and thank you. It's good, and it's more often than anything, it's good enough to be able to say obrigado when you go to Brazil, or say merci beaucoup when you go to France. Make people feel like they're being appreciated because you're taking time to at least try to say something in their language. Just keep your eyes open, keep the opportunities, because you never know when the opportunity will come. Well, that's the end of our discussion today. We have been talking about past experiences with Mr. Paul Clayton, Ms. Christine Suyasa, Nelson Salamor, and myself, Chris Susanto. And thank you also, Pak Neil Wardana, for being here with us throughout this discussion. Hopefully, you'll have learned something from this experience. Don't forget to answer the quiz. The link will be provided in your Google Classroom. And there is also an assignment for you to write about your last travel or vacation or holiday experience. It can be just a local holiday or anywhere that you would like to share something that has happened in the past. You can talk about where did you go, when, with whom, what did you experience, what did you see, what did you like about the place, and what was your most memorable experience there. So share with the class in Google Classroom. Please write it in the past form. And our student assistants will also help you if you are having problems with grammar and so on. And please be ready to discuss this in our next Zoom meeting, because we will discuss about past experiences in the upcoming Zoom meeting. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a great day. Salam teladan dan unggulan dari Universitas Dhyana Pura.